Hello, personal productivity enthusiasts and community. Welcome to Anything But Idle, the Productivity News podcast. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith,
And I'm Augusto Pinaud.
and we're your hosts for Anything But Idle. This is episode 21, and we're recording this on August 27th, 2020. Each week, we cover the productivity news headlines of the week, so you know what's going on in the current research, tools, services, products, and more in the world of personal productivity. And so with that, let's get into our headlines for this week. Augusto, what is our first headline this week?
Business Wire is bringing a survey titled Americans have experienced increase in productivity and work performance since the pandemic, but their wellness has suffered. It is really an interesting survey, and it's a reality that this pandemic has bring a lot of changes. And I think at the beginning, a lot of people lose their routines, their gyms, their exercise before and after work, and the dynamics for that with the social distances and everything else. So it's not a surprise for me that they are saying or that they are bringing this issue that the wellness has suffered, but also I think it's a matter of people getting into that new routine. For many people, was the working from home for the first time and getting used to that and getting used to be on Zoom most of the day or all day. Now, people is getting back to find how they can get their routines, how they can bring equipment at home or do equipment at home or do exercise at home or whatever. So I think we are going to see towards the end of the year a more balance into that now that people is getting into this new normal of working from home.
Their best advice was that you build in this health, wellness, and self care into your workday. And I think that's a really powerful message. Based on that survey. Next up, we have some news out of Redmond, Washington. Microsoft has added audio upload and transcription to Microsoft Word. This does require a Microsoft 365 subscription, but in essence, what happens is you can upload an audio recording, or you can actually record directly in the app. They have added a dictation feature for commands, not necessarily for dictating directly into the application. Google Docs, by the way, if anyone doesn't know, has that feature built into it. So you can open up Google Docs, go to Tools, and then voice typing, and you can speak directly into your computer, with a microphone, and it will transcribe live what you're saying. This particular feature allows you to upload an audio recording or start the recording in the system. Then it does what similar applications like Otter.ai does and that kind of thing, where it will then transcribe it, split the audio among different speakers, and then provide a transcription kind of side by side with the open Word document.
I think with the increase of the use of products like Google Teams, where people is getting into these meets and recording these meets and all this, really getting the file from Teams, throw it into Word, getting now the agenda and being able to send the agenda back with everything what he said. That way, it is a really, really powerful and clever move from Microsoft. No question about it.
So from the article, it looks like you need a Microsoft 365 subscription. It says you're limited to 5 hours of transcription per month and 200 megabyte files for uploads. It sounds to me, from the way in which I read the article, you can record an unlimited amount of time within Word, and that the feature is available in Microsoft Word on the web only right now, and that they want to bring that feature to Android and iOS by the end of 2020. I'm presuming they'll probably integrate it into the desktop applications at some point, but that's their current plans.
Next up is GoodNotes. GoodNotes is one of my really applications I probably use the most on the iPad, and now it add a collaboration feature. So more like you do with with Google Docs and Apple Notes, you can now collaborate in these handwriting notes and bring things. It's not real time as it is on Google Docs. It takes right now 20, 30 seconds to the things to synchronize on the server, but I'm sure that time is going to improve. But as you think about it, if we are doing drawings, with the Apple Pencil and taking notes and putting images, it's a really incredible thing to do that you can make the handwriting notes and it will come in less than 30 seconds to the other person note in the same way. It is really fantastic.
Great to hear, and I'm looking forward to playing with it myself. Next up, Spike is the email application we've talked about in past episodes, but they are expanding to the Mac Store with the new download manager and an integrated browser within the application.
We talked about Spike in the past. It was one of the apps I choose, and it is still for my work email my favorite app. The fact that I can go, that I can do many, many things, it is really powerful. I don't live on a Mac, but if you live on a Mac, I'm assuming that the power between having both devices, it is going to be simply fantastic. And it is a really great application. One of the things I hope is that now that they are going to have more real estate, the note part of Spike on the Mac also it's easier to access than what it is on the iPad or the phones.
You're going to get the ability to use the new download manager, which means you can download multiple items within the Spike application at a time, and also the integrated web browser that they've put inside of the application, so you can open up and read articles and function in a website. If you need to, you can always obviously launch your default browser. Next up, we have some news out of Amazon. What's going on with Amazon?
So Amazon launched their first fitness tracker. It's called Halo, and it is going to have support for sleep, for data, for activity, and it's an alternative for the Apple Watch, for the Fitbit integrated with that, and it is going to be $65. It's going to have a subscription that is going to be, I think it's $4 a month, and it is a really interesting to see Amazon, playing with this new thing. It's right now, exclusive for some people. $4 for the service, and it doesn't have a screen. You need to use your phone to be able to access to all the health information. But one of the things that they talk is you will be able to create a personalized 3D model of you, so that way you could see how you are going to start looking or how you used to look as you start all this. You will be able to get, they're really trying to do and track the sleep and track waste and help you to improve. And obviously, we'll have the accessories, but it's not a watch. It doesn't have a watch feature, at least on this version. It doesn't have a way to even tell you the time. So you're basically going to carry the thing on your hands, but without doing you any watch or anything. Maybe initial, similar to the lower end Fitbits.
And with that, a word from our sponsor this week, Zarvana, which you can find at zarvana.com.
As a young analyst at a leading strategy and management consulting firm, I experienced what ambitious professionals experience every week. I had a strong desire to get promoted as quickly as I could, and I wanted to take on exciting side projects. And I wanted to do all of that while spending less time at work, so my life outside of work wasn't limited to exhaustion and recovery. My observations of my coworkers told me this wasn't possible, but I knew there had to be a way. I began to research and experiment, and in 2 to 3 months I had reduced the hours I was working by over 15%, while placing myself on the path to a faster than average promotion. My success led to the creation of Zarvana, a tool designed to give you the edge at work and in life. It combines a diagnostic, abbreviated courses, and a habit tracker into a single application to enable you to get the most out of your time in just minutes per week. You can start by taking the Time Finder diagnostic to find out how many of our 150 time-saving behaviors you're currently doing.
All right, we are back and we are going to our next headline. A little bit of the business of personal productivity news. Asana is planning to basically go public through a New York Stock Exchange direct listing. And so a couple of really interesting things here is that many times in the personal productivity sphere, especially with software companies, we're not really aware of their numbers, like how much money they make, if they're financially solvent, all of those things. And so this is a really unique insight into a company like Asana. And so Asana is going to divulge their financials. We could be hearing about this as early as next week, and then we'll start seeing them publicize their analysis of their financials on a regular basis. They're saying they're roughly $5 billion in market value. And so we'll see what happens. I'm really curious to see when they do file for the direct listing on the New York Stock Exchange. We'll learn more about them from that afterward. So very curious to see. And I'm a big fan of Asana, so I'm looking forward to seeing what is going on under the hood, so to speak, which we don't get often. We can see now Slack's information because they went onto the stock exchange. We're going to see that now with Asana.
Yeah, I think that's awesome to start seeing, for a person who is being on this productivity world with the apps and all that, seeing some of these companies really growing to a completely different level and see Asana, getting to this level. I think that's something really, really important.
Yeah, especially outside of the major, Microsoft, Google space, to see these companies get to this level is really exciting.
The next is news with Todoist, and Todoist has been really, really active with all this pandemic. So they bring us the summer edition of what they are doing. So they are redesigning the quick add for table for the web, so that way you can get a much more modern, and it seems to me not only modern, but it's just also a lot more functional. Same thing uh, on the phones. Now you will be use a forward slash, so that way you put things inside of the category, so you can do a tag for house slash painting, and it will create a house slash painting category. I think that's really something really, really cool to be able to add sections on a project, that easy. So um, there is a link on the article of some of the things, the schedule later things, but it is really, as I said, Todoist has been really, really polishing their game on the past months, and it's been a regular feature here in Anything But Idle because of that.
Yeah, they're adding themselves to iOS shortcuts for Siri, and so that'll be really interesting to see the various Siri shortcuts you can do now. And yeah, so I'm really pleased with a lot of the various options that they have added to the system. We noted in past episodes, Todoist has partnered with Verizon to give Verizon premium access to students and teachers for some period of time, and they have partnered now with Zoho to add team communication like Slack and Google Chat and otherwise. That's Zoho's product Click, and they're partnering with them to be able to connect Todoist and Zoho together. They're just doing a lot. Now they have the board's beta program running. They're just really, really making a strong play in the market, and good on them for doing so. I'm very excited to see what they bring. And then just a little bit of Google news. They're bringing forward the feature set for shortcuts. So if you didn't know, Google has always had the ability for you to be able to link to or create shortcuts to other files. And that allowed you to be able to have one single document, right? That's the single source of truth for that particular document or folder. And now Google is naming that, it's labeling it better as shortcuts, which makes a lot of sense. And they are going through that process of making it easier for everyone. So Shift Z will create a shortcut, and then you can place that shortcut almost anywhere in Google Drive. And they are doing that process of migrating the old shortcuts. And you'll also be able to create quote unquote target audiences. So you can create these groups of people you want to share with in an organization if you're inside of G Suite. So this is like really, really powerful stuff here because that means you'll be able to, link to things and not have duplication in your system. And if you train your employees properly, then you don't have that kind of confusion over, oh, well, I worked on this document and then somebody worked on another document, and now you have conflicting changes across the board. With that brings us to the end of our headlines this week. Augusto and I come across many personal development, time, task, project management, and you name it, tools and services each week. Some we use, some we don't use, but we find really interesting. And so we wanted to share them with you here in this New Tools of the Week segment. Tool number 1 this week. I have used this now with several clients who have just needed a tool to be able to do this function, which is to remove the background from an image, to make it a transparent image in the sense of having a foreground subject and then removing the background from it. Maybe it's a headshot, maybe it's a photograph of a client in an environment, maybe it's taking a product photo and being able to place that product photo on your website in your product catalog. And the service is called Remove Background, and it's just remove.bg. That's the top level domain .bg. And so if you go to just remove.bg, you can upload an image and it will just automatically remove the background, and then you can download that image. And there are different versions of the software. You can pay for higher levels of quality and that kinds of thing, but it's just really useful and easy to use. I use other software for my general management of images and design and whatever, but this has just been a really quick and dirty tool for that one specific function. Augusto, what's your tool of the week?
My tool of the week is called Via Negativa, and I linked the app on the App Store in the notes, as well as an article from the Art of Manliness that talks about it. And I have talked for many years about my do not do list, about my do not need list, and Via Negativa basically tells you to improve your life by removing things. And it is how can you remove things so you can be more productive, more effective, and all that. It's a really interesting app, and it's the first time for a person who's been talking about a do not do list for really over a decade. It is really interesting to see an application that really focus into that. So it's been a great addition. It's actually allowed me to remove some of the stuff that I have, like those things from um, OmniFocus, put it in the application and focus with that. So it's been a great application, great article to read, and all that.
That brings us to our featured story this week. And this week we're talking Apple and Safari 14, which will allow for conversion support for Chrome, Firefox, and Edge extensions. Give us a little bit of background on this, Augusto. What's happening in iOS 14 and Safari 14?
Apple finally will, there has been Chrome. It's been known for the great extension. So early this year we saw Firefox, we saw Edge, based it on that Chromium, so they could use these extensions. And now finally, Apple, it's going to allow the use of these extensions on Safari when Safari 14 comes in the Mac store. And it is a really, really big deal for developers and for people to be able to convert these extensions. I have a lot of clients who their their business requires some of these extensions for the day to day, and then they need to work into Chrome to make it happen. Now with Big Sur and Safari 14, you will be able to add all those into Safari and use Safari if that's what you like the most. But I like the thing that it's going to be available, and I think it's a big step for Apple to really integrate those extensions and for us as consumers to really now being able to get amassed access to this.
Yeah, my criticism is that Safari should have done this years ago. They lost a lot of market dominance to Google and to Microsoft in terms of the browser market, maybe to Mozilla Firefox as well. But they could have really done a much better job of doing this earlier the in the development cycle for Safari. That being the case, I'm appreciative to see it happen. One kind of minor note, but important for those who are developers. If you're a software developer and you're thinking of bringing and porting your web extension from Chrome, Firefox, Edge ecosystems over, you do have to have an Apple Developer Program membership. So you have to pay that $99 US per year in order to be able to have access to the functionality to be able to convert it. And of course, not all extensions are going to be able to work in Safari, so it just depends upon some of the backend stuff that's necessary to connect the pieces. But this is a huge, opportunity for a lot of folks, and I'm looking forward to seeing many of the extensions that I do use in Chrome that are not available on Safari hopefully come over. Again, that's going to be a financial decision for those developers, especially since many of them are free and are not, they're not doing it for money. They just wanted to create an extension to be useful to Chrome users or to Firefox users or otherwise, and paying that $100 per year, US to Apple may be too much of a barrier to get over the threshold to make that happen. So then there's a business model, discussion that needs to be had about, every extension. So I'm really curious as to whether or not this is going to provide more extensions on the Safari ecosystem, if not a faster development of those. And so I'm just looking forward to seeing what happens. And I think either way, it's a good kind of step forward. I'm hoping that Apple maybe thinks a little bit more about how they use the Apple Developer Program membership license fee, whatever, for people to be able to get access to it. So with that, that's our featured story this week. Thank you, Augusto. And as we come to a close, a few items. If we missed a story, we place any extra stories in our extra section in the show notes. So you can check out any other headlines that we didn't put here in the story in the episode in the show notes. But if we missed something, feel free to head over to our contact page at anythingbutidle.com. There you can contact us. You can also tweet or DM us on Twitter at anythingbutidle. That's our Twitter handle. And so you can find us on social media by finding our links through anythingbutidle.com. If you can, please leave a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. Those seem to be the two platforms that allow for ratings and reviews. If your favorite podcast app does allow for it, feel free to give us feedback there. We're really happy and excited to hear from all of you. So thank you for helping us grow the Anything But Idle audience. And finally, thanks for listening to Anything But Idle, the Productivity News podcast. Until next time, here's to your productive life.